Hello, guys! Welcome back to another episode of Today's Matter of Consequence.
Today's episode is going to be about gender-neutral language. So recently, or not recently, but we've been sent an article about how in France, the Minister of Education has decided that schools should not have kind of gender-neutral language that like taught to younger children, especially in primary school, while they're learning how to read and write in French. So we're going to kind of dive into that and then explore, like learning languages and pronouns at an early age as well, and also how gender neutral language is used at our school. So I guess I'll kind of introduce the French language since I guess I know it best between the two of us.
Are you doubting my abilities
No.
as a French?
But anyway, basically in French, we have two genders. We have, in the language itself, we have feminine and masculine, and every word has like a feminine or masculine,
Ending.
Yeah, ending, and it's assigned like one or the other. You don't really know how it's assigned. It's just the way it is, and you just have to memorize it as you go. And it's the same thing for pronouns for people. There's il, which is him, and elle, which is her, and then that's it. There's nothing else. There's no they in French. There's vous, but that's like very fancy. That's like if you're addressing one person that way, it doesn't really have the same like connotation, I guess, as them in English. So that's why we were kind of exploring what non-binary people use in France, and they have their own pronoun, which is a mix of il and elle, which is iel, I think it's pronounced.
Yeah. I mean, technically there is a they, but you cannot use it because it's
Yeah.
plural, and you cannot restructure your sentence in a way for it to make sense like you can do in English.
Yeah.
Because everything's like so... the grammatical structure relies on the gender as well as like singular or plural.
And that's why I know also like French people, when they learn English, and if they're talking to someone else and that other person like addresses a singular person as them or they, then they get very confused. They're like, oh, so there's more than one person, or so that's something that happens pretty often. So yeah. And so in the article that we saw, basically what the Minister of Education is saying is, because there have been efforts to try and make French more like inclusive, I guess, recently, because the thing is, like in French you could have a group of 1 million girls, but as long as there's one boy in that group, suddenly you have to address them in masculine like version. It doesn't matter like who the majority is. If there's one boy, it's masculine. And so they're trying to they tried to change that, and they tried to be like, okay, let's put like a little like dot and then put like an E at the end to say like, oh, maybe there are girls, maybe like whatever. But then the Minister of Education said that that's just too complicated. Think of how many dot and little E's and S's everyone's going to have to write while learning the French language. Let's not do that. That's a terrible idea.
Yeah, didn't the article also mention something about like the tradition of the language, like the values or whatever?
So, yeah, in France they hold the French language to be like very high and mighty, I guess, because we have l'Académie Française, which is kind of like the institution that determines the French dictionary, and it's been there for a really long time. It's been there for centuries, so that's how the French language has changed very little over the past few centuries. Unlike English and a lot of other languages, French is actually pretty similar to what it was before, which is why we can still understand like text from like Shakespeare's time and whatnot and all
because
of that
we don't
stuff.
understand the English, yeah.
Because in English it's like more metaphors, and it's more, I know people find it harder to understand. Yeah.
Yes.
But then French is basically the same thing, so it doesn't really matter. We still understand everything. So that's why they think it's so important to keep the traditional
it's like a reflection of this, like, you know how like, because French as a language is kind of like like the it like the it girl of Western society.
Okay.
And like
Okay.
I feel like upholding that is very much just like upholding like the traditional Western little like superiority. Yeah, it's very
I can
iffy.
see that. Yeah. So I guess next we'll kind of look at. I don't know. Do we want to talk about different languages?
I mean, I can talk about Slovak.
Go for it.
Similarly to French, Slovak, it's basically the same thing. Like,
Okay.
everything's gendered, everything is, like, singular or plural. If you have a group of 1,000,000 girls and one guy, you will still, like, use
Address
the word
it as masculine.
As masculine,
Yeah.
I have a bunch of non-binary friends back home,
Mhm.
and I've noticed that they usually just use, like, the masculine
Okay. Yeah.
because that's more like general.
Yeah.
Because like the feminine words are like specifically feminine, and masculine words are usually viewed as like the standard. Even when you're learning a language, like you learn the masculine because that is the standard, and then you
It's like
add
the easier, and then you
add
on.
something to make
Yeah.
it feminine. So I've noticed many of my friends doing that, but also like there is no they them that you could use like you do in English.
And then there are languages like German where there's the neutral gender, but only for as an article. It's not really something that you like address people as.
Yeah.
And then there are also languages like Chinese and Korean where we, when you address someone, there isn't a gender. So I know in Chinese, when you speak, there's no gender, but then when you write down, there is a difference between like her and him. But at the end of the day, it kind of like just comes down to be the same thing. And then for Korean, there are no genders. We just say you, or so we say you or like them if they're younger than us, and if they're older than us, then we have a certain amount of like respect that we have to hold for them. So we either say their names or their title, I guess. So we don't really have genders, but we're still a very traditional society, so it's not like it really matters. So yeah.
I mean, should we
we can move on.
It's very interesting because, like, language reflects society in a way. And, like, even Korea is very traditional, as you said. Like, it more so values, like, hierarchy than, like, gendering stuff.
Yep.
Just very interesting.
It's the way it is. Okay, so then we can also talk about, I guess, teaching children about pronouns at an early age. So, I
think that's very important because, like, pronouns are a reflection of one's gender identity, and everyone has a gender. Like, I understand why some parents are reluctant to teach their kids about like sexuality because that is sexual. I mean, I don't agree with it, but like I can see it. But like gender and your like gender identity is something that like you operate within it on a daily basis, and I feel like every kid should understand. So
yeah.
So that of course entails teaching them about pronouns.
Yeah.
Because. Yeah, go for it.
So one of the posts that I saw while we were doing our little exploration earlier was a parent saying that they have a sibling who is non-binary trans, I think it was that they said, and their sibling addresses the writer's son as them. Or they, or, you know, gender-neutral pronouns. And I guess the parent didn't feel comfortable because the child was a baby. They were, like, 9 months old, I think. And they said, I don't want my sibling to be addressing my son as they or them. I'd rather they just, like address them as him.
So, like, use the gender they were assigned at birth. I mean, I feel like this is very new, like, in parenting, especially with, I mean... Grimes and Elon Musk, their baby uses they them pronouns because they're letting it I'm gonna call it.
They're letting
the baby,
the child.
I don't know how to pronounce their name.
112. I
don't know. I don't know. That's why I said
their child.
Babies are it.
Okay.
Anyway, they're letting their child decide.
Yeah.
And I feel like many conservative people, because like conservative people hold more traditional values, and they like find it very outrageous that like, oh, can like decide their gender.
Yeah. I don't know. And
Well,
also
decide is like the wrong word, but like
can
like
determine,
explore
I guess.
and
Yeah.
and choose what they're gonna identify as.
Yeah. I also know that I think this was a couple years ago, but when what's his face? Cristiano Ronaldo, football player.
Yeah, I know who he is.
Okay, I don't know if you know. I don't know. But anyway, he decided to raise, I think, his last child or second last child or one of his children as like gender neutral. And so he was like, okay, well, instead of having like a pink room or a blue room or whatever, I'm just gonna have like this nice little cream colored
or like
thing
green
going on.
or...
Yeah. And so there was quite a bit of a reaction to that. So obviously like the news was like, oh my god, this is great. And then like a lot of, I guess, fans who were more conservative were like, why would you do that? It's a baby, it's born, it's gonna be born with one or the other, so...
But do the people who are so against it,
Yeah.
do they not realize that, like, by gendering everything, they're indoctrinating their children with something else? Like gender-neutral parents, I guess you could call them that.
Yeah.
Like, they're just giving their kids, like, a chance to, like,
Yeah.
explore on their own, instead of, like, indoctrinating them with, like, some social construct ideology.
Yeah.
But funnily enough, it is viewed as them like pushing this politically correct agenda.
I mean, obviously neither of us are parents, so we don't really know, like, I don't know, like, what the reactions are like, kind of, to, like, parents picking to have a more gender neutral, like,
I think it's gonna become more and more common.
Yeah,
especially
definitely.
when we're gonna be parents.
Our generation in general.
Yeah, our generation, not us
Us specifically. No, yeah, I think it will become more common, and I think that's it's like I think it's a step in the right direction, honestly, because like we often hear stories about children who kind of were forced into one direction when they weren't really identifying with that direction, and then it causes a lot of trauma and discomfort, and
maybe it will stop gender reveal parties and no more forest fires, guys.
I don't understand gender reveal parties.
Me neither. I'm like so American.
Why would I've never seen a gender reveal party in Europe ever. Like they just like find out the gender and they're like, okay, that's it.
Yeah, they find out sex and they're like,
yeah. Oh, sex, my bad. They find out the sex and they're like, okay, yeah. And they just tell everyone, like, okay, it is what it is.
It's gonna be assigned a girl, it's gonna be assigned a boy.
And I know in China and in Korea, I don't know about anywhere else, but I know in these two countries, finding out the gender is illegal. So...
What?
Yeah. It's illegal to find out the sex of your baby before they're born, because there has been a very common pattern of abandoning baby girls or aborting baby girls. So they're just like, okay, well, now that that's happening. So obviously, like, in Korea and in China, there's a very big difference between the ratio between men and women.
Yeah.
So it's a bit of an issue. So now it's illegal to find out the sex of your baby.
That is really interesting.
Yeah. I mean...
Also, like, I feel like raising your kid in, like, a gender-neutral way is gonna make it so much, like, easier for them in, like... Especially when they're, like, in high school, because they don't have to be, like... They will have to come out in a way once they, like, I guess, find an identity that, like...
Well, if they want to, like, obviously,
if they want to. But it's not gonna be this, like... It's not gonna be, like, as big of a deal.
Yeah.
In a way. And that is definitely, like, easier on the kid.
Definitely. And I think it's also, like, it's a good idea to start, because even today, like, nowadays, like, coming out is still a huge thing. And it should be a huge thing, because for that person, it's probably really important.
Yeah.
But also, like, beginning to normalize, like, those kinds of things.
Yeah.
Like, and celebrating it, but also not, like, I guess, making a huge deal out of it for, like, everyone, kind of. Because, like, I've seen people, like, make a big deal out of, like, a friend coming out or something, and then suddenly everyone knows, and maybe that's not what they wanted, so
yeah, definitely.
It becomes a little awkward afterwards. So yeah.
Moving on to gender neutral language at SAS.
So, SAS.
Okay, let's start with the good things.
Okay.
I've heard of a couple teachers, like, at the beginning of the year, they do a little survey, and they're like, what are your preferred pronouns? What pronouns should I use with you, with your parents, and in front of the class? Like, different settings, which is really good. I also know that the counselors worked with us, with GSA, to, like, learn more about pronouns, because many teachers at SAS, like, they care and they,
and
like,
are willing to
and
learn.
they're willing to learn. It's just, like, it's a more generational thing, because, like, when they were our age, it was more so about gay rights, because that was, like,
Not a thing.
not a thing.
Yeah.
And now that we gay people have more rights, it's like, oh, let's get rights for other people too.
Yeah.
So they definitely want to learn, and there has been an effort to, like, learn more.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've definitely seen teachers, like, say, or, like, catch themselves, like, instead of saying, like, oh, girls, let's do this, they'll be like, okay, kids, like, try to just switch it up a little bit so that it's more gender-neutral language. I've also seen, maybe not teachers, but, like, substitutes. There are a couple kids where often they're, like, unsure about the gender, so they'll just be like, oh, are they, or like, sometimes they'll ask, where I'm like, okay, yeah. So
also, in, like, fake scenarios, like, if you're learning something, it's like a learning scenario. I've noticed teachers switching from he or she to they them.
Yeah,
which is really cool.
I've seen that too.
Yeah.
And I think, like, I don't know, like, the whole school, maybe not, but I know that in like, I guess, kind of, I want to say, like, most of the school, like, if you tell them, like, oh, I'd prefer these pronouns, quite a few people will respect that.
Yeah,
almost all teachers.
Almost
yeah,
all teachers for sure.
Student body, maybe
a
little less.
Even they might, like, respect them, like, your pronouns.
Yeah.
When they're talking to you.
Yeah.
But then, like, when they're talking about you,
there might be a little bit of a switch in tone.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think really often, like, it comes down to people not understanding or knowing. Like, I'm not going to, like, give out any names or anything, but
do it. Name
no,
I'm kidding.
But there's this there's, like, a couple groups of, like, kids in at least our grade where it's mostly, like, they just don't know because they've never been really, like,
exposed to it,
and they honestly, I don't want to say they don't care, because they probably would care if you could explain it to them, but they just haven't taken the time to, like, understand or do research. So,
and you have that everywhere.
Yeah. So there's that. And then obviously there's just some people who aren't going to respect it, and that's when there's more of an issue. Yeah. But I mean, out of all of the schools that I've been to, I think SAS may not be the most open-minded school when it comes to these kinds of things, but I do want to say that they're definitely the ones that have made the most efforts.
Yeah.
Because
at least they present themselves in a way that makes them seem like it.
Because I know that, like, the teachers have been through, like, lessons and everything.
Yeah, safe zone training.
Yeah, so that's definitely and a lot more than other schools that I've seen.
And there's always, like, an active conversation about this type of stuff.
Like, teachers and other students usually don't shy away from these kinds of conversations. It's something that, like, we openly have. Meanwhile, in more, like, I guess in Europe it's fine. Like, you can have that conversation, but usually it's not, like, it doesn't go in the same direction.
I also feel like in Europe, I don't know, but I feel like sometimes it's a bit more normalized. Like,
Yeah. I agree. Like, in my previous school, we were much more open about, like, I guess, sexuality and stuff like that when it comes to, like, conversations, and teachers wouldn't shy away from that either, but there were a lot more conservative people who were very open about their thoughts as well, because it's, like, what's preached the most in Europe is freedom of speech, so obviously, like, you can't say anything because hate speech is still a crime, but you can say most things. So there was that. So there was often a debate, I guess. And then there are places, like, where I was even before that where it's just not a conversation. It just doesn't exist.
Yeah, like, in Slovakia, in, like, the public school I went to, like, no, this would not be happening.
Yeah.
You'd probably get bullied and ostracized.
And also, like, since they're not exposed to, like, no one ever comes out around there because they're, like, really scared, obviously. because they don't feel very welcome. Then there's like a bunch of like jokes that happen and like
and that's very uncomfortable.
yeah. I don't know.
Or, like people assuming about you and like making fun of you that way.
Yeah. My previous school like recently published a Pride edition of their newspaper, and it was very interesting to read actually. I think there was one anonymous article. It was like more of an opinion thing, but it was very, very powerful, and it was about the writer is bisexual but hasn't come out yet, and was kind of I don't want to say listing off the problems with the school because that's not what they were doing, but kind of explaining what they were feeling and what they thought was like good about the school, but how there's so many things that could be improved and that people often don't recognize, I guess.
Yeah.
So yeah.
I also feel like people speaking out against these issues, like it's not necessarily a call out all the time. It's just like it's a way to like make progress. Like you have to point out an issue, but then you also have to like actively work to get rid of it.
Okay, why would you say these kinds of, or like why do you think these kinds of things?
What do you want to do about it?
Yeah.
Yeah, like you have to be proactive in your complaining.
Yeah, it can't just be like
us right now.
Yeah, like us right now. But it's something that has gotten better.
If schools were to like teach kids about pronouns, where do you think that would happen? Like, would it be in language classes or in health class?
I honestly, I feel like it would more be like at an early age. I guess it'd be more in a language class because it's. I think for now it's probably in a health class what we have currently, but it'd be great if we could move towards it being in a language class for it to be more normalized and something that's like formal education. I want to say, because like often we don't take health class seriously.
Yeah, definitely.
No one takes health class. Oops. No, but if it was in a language class, then I feel like people would and if the teacher was able to explain like, okay, so there's like he, her, they, them, and just kind of go through it all.
You know when you're like, especially in like first or second grade, when you're like learning, I don't want to say words, you know how to speak.
You know how to speak by then, but like...
Yeah, I don't know, I don't remember.
Formal? Kind of more formal ways?
But when you're like, or maybe in like kindergarten even, like you have like a picture and like a word and like...
Yeah.
And you could just like put it together and be like, oh, he, and then you have like a man, but what does it mean to be a man? Ooh.
Wow.
That could get iffy.
Yeah, like Duolingo when you're going through Duolingo and it's like a girl, a boy, and stuff like that. Yeah, I mean, I think it should be in a language. Do you think it should be in a language class?
Yeah.
I think that's...
Because even if you don't understand like the identity politics of it, it has been normalized for you, and then when you get to like 6th grade, you're in health class, like...
It's not that new of a concept.
It's not that new of a concept, and you just like you understand more about that identity, and you've been exposed to it.
Yeah. So, I think that's probably the best way to go about it.
Yeah.
Is there anything else that we should mention or talk about? I mean,
I don't think so. I feel like I could go on a tangent about anything in this.
Yeah.
But is that really appropriate?
I don't know. Well, anyway, kind of looping back to like the whole languages, academies, institutions, whatever, trying to make their language more, I guess, gender neutral. I did see another article where I think German news has tried to become more gender neutral. I don't exactly know how, but that's what I saw on the news. So yeah, so we do see like bigger, I guess.
No, because languages are like cultural reflections of like society and the power structures within our society.
Yeah.
So I feel like I guess why people get so iffy about like gender neutral language is because like it in a way like starts dismantling like the gender binary.
Yeah. And I know that like the French with their whole like it makes things too complicated. It does make things more complicated, you know, adding like cuz I don't know if you saw the formatting. It's like a little dot and everything. It is more complicated. It could pose problems for young children who are trying to learn how to read, but I mean, at the end of the day, what's the goal?
Yeah.
like, are we trying, like, I think, well, the French language from the very beginning was a little problematic, as we saw earlier. So it's not the best language in the world when it comes to, I want to say, inclusivity. But hopefully, if not in primary schools, they can try and make an effort, like maybe in like the workplace or formal writing and stuff like that, and try to make things more gender neutral and gender inclusive, because there's a long way to go.
Yeah.
So yeah, so that was our little episode about
Our little hot take.
Yeah, on gender neutral language.
Yeah.
I guess, yeah, we could say Happy Pride Month again, since we're still in Pride Month. And
what if this episode comes out after Pride Month?
it won't.
Okay.
It won't. I'll leave links below again for resources and queer businesses, and not that anyone's gonna see this, but like and subscribe, everyone.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Back in.
Yeah, we'll be back soon.